Minasan Konichiwa, watashi no Nihon no Rekishi e yokoso, or hello everyone, welcome to my history of Japan. In this video, we will be talking about the history of one of the world's oldest countries, Japan. Japan goes way beyond geishas, anime, bonsai trees, and Shinto shrines. There is a bigger story and identity to this place, which I will cover in this video. I also want to apologize for any mispronunciations. I am not native to Japan, obviously. I have also never been to Japan, although I'd love to go. Although I don't know how I'd fare with the food, but anyways, I am a bit better at pronouncing Japanese words than Chinese words, but I am still not a master, obviously, so I'll do my best. If you take offense, I apologize in advance, but anyways, we gotta get this show on the road. Without further ado, here's my history of the land known as Nippon, or Japan. The land, the people, the history, and culture of Japan begins in a crack, literally. In the 1970s, in the tropical and beautiful islands of Okinawa in far south Japan, although it's barely like real life Japan, the culture is very different, a series of human remains were found. Named the Minutagawa people, these remains were dated to 300,000 years ago, marking the beginning of the land we call Japan. Possibly about 15,000 years ago, people living on the south end of the Korean peninsula, in what's now South Korea obviously, were able to travel to Japan across a now sunken land bridge. However, research is still ongoing into this, like people in this place. From 12,000 years ago to 2,000 years ago, or 10,000 BCE to 300 BCE very roughly, emerged the first culture in Japan, the so-called Jamon Culture. These people had a psychotic level of obsession with making pottery. Pottery, and nothing but pottery, as you can say. Yeah, that rhymed. This is probably why they left behind so much pottery all over Japan. Pottery to the Jamon people is like Scientology to Tom Cruise. They can't survive without each other. Oh, and also the Jamon culture and the Jamon people had a weird obsession with making sculptures of nude women, so there's that. Anyways, after a long time of making crazy pottery that looks like it's from space or alien culture, the Jamon were replaced by the next culture of Japan, which you'll later on find out about. But there's something important that happened in between this time. Apparently not all the Jamon people were crazy. One did something very important. On this day, February 11th in 660 BCE, Japan was quote-unquote founded, end quote, by its first emperor, Emperor Jimmu. Jimmu would reign from 660 to 585 because we're not at after AD yet, and he supposedly died at 126 according to legend. I'll let you believe that if you want. This is why today it is Japanese National Day because it was kind of founded on this day according to legend. From here on out, Japan would either have an emperor, an empress, or both. Mostly both. Thus making it the oldest still continuous monarchy in the world by far. If there was still a pharaoh, they would blow Japan out of the water in age, but there's no pharaohs anymore, so congrats, Japan. In case you couldn't tell in this photo, the guy staring at that bird very, very attentively like it's going to be his dinner is Emperor Jimmu. I also made an arrow point to him. Before I go any further, I have to give you a Japan geography lesson, just for a reference, and so you understand the following vocab words. So, Japan is a volcanic archipelago, or chain of islands, if you will. There are thousands and thousands of islands in Japan, but the main four are, from north to south, Hokkaido, Honshu, the main island, which has the capital Tokyo and Mount Fuji, Shikoku, which is kind of like the West Virginia of Japan, which is kind of poor, and the southeasternmost island and southernmost island, Kyushu. Are we good now? Yes? Okay. Okay, now that we're done with this geography lesson, let's continue. 2,000 years ago in 300 BCE, lasting until roughly the year 250 or 250 AD if you want, the next culture of Japan, the Yayoi culture, began, even though it doesn't sound Japanese 1%. The Yayoi introduced many things to Japan that would remain, like rice farming, metalworking, and you guessed it, pottery making. In fact, the Yayoi likely domesticated rice, so if you like rice, you have them to thank. Salsa rice is the best. If you want to debate me in the comments, feel free to. The Yayoi didn't die out or disappear. They kind of just remade themselves and said, screw traditional values and traditional principles. I'm going to rename ourselves the Kofun, which brings us to the first period of Japanese history, the Kofun period. Roughly 250 to 540, descendants of the Yayoi, now known as the Kofun, created their own culture called, the Kofun culture. This culture began a new period in Japan, and I'll let you figure out what it's called at this point. During this period, Japan's emperor, or empress as sometimes it occurred, gained more powers, including building tombs the size of cities, even if it's for one people, and it is also shaped like a keyhole, because, I don't know, this is like the Fortnite of the age. The Kofun period is sometimes considered part of the Yamato period as a smaller portion of it, but I don't, because it lasts 200 years after the Kofun period. During this period, the notable Yamato clan was founded. The Yamato dominated society in this age, eventually becoming the ancestors of Japan's monarchy, if you want to say that, but this is highly debated amongst historians. Between 538 and 552, Buddhist monks can't agree on this. Buddhism was introduced to Japan by people from China. This angered the Yamato because they wanted to stay traditional and follow Shintoism, but just about everyone in Japan but them converted to Buddhism, so they were outnumbered and were later deposed from their kingdom or empire. It's a weird time in Japan's history. Besides, now there is an imperial family. From 574 to 622, a man named Prince Shotoku reigned as a prince in Japan's imperial family. Prince Shotoku, although never emperor himself, did way more than his father, the actual emperor, Emperor Yomei. For one, Prince Shotoku united Japan under a single monarchy. It's kind of debated if this was an empire. It had no name. There's no maps of it, even. And for a second reason, Prince Shotoku is also notable because he promoted the growth of Buddhism, which the Yamato clan couldn't complain about because they were all dead. From 710 to 784, we reach the second period in Japanese history, the Nara period. Named after the new capital of Japan, Nara, instead of Asuka, which was the old capital. That's where the name came from, anyways. During this period, the main emperor of it, Emperor Shomu, got addicted to building Buddhist temples. This was a very popular pastime for him and the royal family as a whole, and it was also a coping method for them. Have a domestic issue? Build a Buddhist temple. Did a dog urinate on your new fancy rug? Build a Buddhist temple. Did you get deposed by a usurper? Build a Buddhist temple. Suddenly, in 756, Emperor Shomu died. He left his temple to be run by the monks, but they were getting so stinking rich from embezzling money for funds from the royal family. They were buying their way into government and reaping all the benefits. Also, at this time, you can now hire samurai. The samurai obviously love killing each other. That's kind of the reason they were hired. Sometimes as a punishment for losing a fighting challenge. Oh, it was bad. Samurai would be barred from fighting ever again and automatically become a monk for the rest of their life. From 794 to 1185, we reach the third period of Japanese history, the Heian period. It is called the Heian period as the current emperor at the time, named Emperor Kamu, moved the capital from Nara to Heian as there were a lot of stingy, perverted monks begging him for money and high ranks in government. Heian, which you may know as Kyoto today, became a center of culture and government, as capitals often do. Emperor Kamu also sent 2 Buddhist monks to China to become big brain, since China was like the university for Asia at the time. They came back arguing with each other on Buddhism. This caused an ugly divorce in Buddhism, creating 2 new sects, kind of like with Catholicism and Protestantism and Christianity, and Sunni and Shia Islam in Islam. The first sect, known as Tendai Buddhism, was like, Buddhism should be accessible to all. We need to spread the great word of Jesus Christ. Buddha. The second sect, Shingon Buddhism, was like, no, Buddhism should not be accessible to all. We need secrets and taboo things. Also, nature and philosophy should be not neglected. After this schism in Buddhism, the emperor was like, Man, we are broke. I know, let's invent taxes, which made the Buddhist monks say. From 1194 to 1333, we reach the fourth period in Japanese history, the Kamakura Period, named after a city which surprisingly was not the capital, Kamakura. That honor still fell onto Heian. And by the way, Kamakura is south of Tokyo. Anyways, just as this period began, we saw the ascension of the Minamoto clan to the newly founded position of the shogun, or military dictator of Japan, who was lower in ranks than the emperor, but they didn't always think that was true. The Minamoto clan defeated the Taira clan, who, followed by Japanese tradition, were exiled and became, you guessed it, monks. However, in 1274, someone knocked on the door. The Japanese were like, "Who's this?" And the people knocking were like, "The Mongols." That's right, now the Mongols were trying to conquer Japan. In 1274, they arrived in Japan's south, but were crushed by the shogun's forces. But then the Mongols were like, "Reinforcements, please," and they sent in 200 ships, which got destroyed in a typhoon. So they sent 300 ships, which got destroyed in a typhoon, and they sent 600 ships, which, you guessed it, got destroyed in a typhoon. But after spending way too much money on fighting the Mongols, the shogun became broke, ending the Kamakura period. That's an odd way to end a period, but who knows? Now that the Kamakura period had ended, we now arrive at the fifth period in Japanese history, the Muramachi period, which lasted from 1336 to 1573. Now that the shogun had begun dominating Japanese culture, the emperor got antsy and tried to end it. Suddenly, after failing to realize you can't really end your military so easily, Emperor Go-Daigo accidentally split the monarchy into two opposing houses. On one hand, the northern house, the Ashikaga clan, and the other house, the four usurping emperors, who were also trying to kill each other while trying to become shoguns. Sorry, I've been mumbling a lot. Nothing really happened after this, except for political strife, until 1466. From 1466 to 1477, war broke out in Japan, known as the Onin War. This war was fought over who should be shogun, this guy or this guy, which I probably shouldn't have shown on screen until now. The first of these two people won, becoming shogun. However, Japan's unity soon ended, beginning the Sengoku, or Japanese Warring States era, lasting within other periods from 1467 to 1615. Now, Japan was split into 100 or so warring states, like China, but way more complicated. And we now arrive at the sixth and by far most chaotic period of Japanese history, the Sengoku Period. Like I said before, this period lasted from 1467 to 1603. I'll save you the long time I spent researching this period by just saying that the warlord of Daimyo, sorry, not Daimyo, that's the native word for warlord, the daimyo of Oda Nobunaga, won. He later tried unifying Japan, but he didn't get so far. He got most of Honshu, but he didn't get all of it. Anyways, he died. Never fear, you can just make your general continue your work. And so, Oda Nobunaga's general, the famed Toyotomi Hideyoshi, continued where he left off. He just conquered a very tiny state in the south. Pathetic. And so, his general, Tokugawa Ieyasu, would finish the job. And so, Tokugawa Ieyasu unified all of what is now modern Japan, except for a bit in Kyushu and a bit in Hokkaido, which was kind of doing its own thing up until now. From 1603 to 1868, we arrive at the seventh period in Japanese history, one of the best, known as the Edo Period. In 1603, Edo, or as you may call it today, Tokyo, meaning Eastern Capital, was made capital of Japan and founded. It would be a golden age of Japan, which you can say continues today, just with a few hiccups in it. I'll get to that later. Anyways, the people of Japan got so high from doing art, about 90% of all of the Japanese art made before the technology age was made in this period. This is also when many Japanese stereotypes were born, like geisha women who wore powder to make their faces white. Geishas had an interesting role. They were like the entertainers or just the communal-based people. They were supposed to be all sorts of things. Sometimes they were told to be actresses, other times singers, and then other times prostitutes. Anyways, geishas also started wearing and inventing kimonos. Kimonos are an elegant form of Japanese dress, which are known for their T shape and floral designs. Today, kimonos are the national dress of Japan. Also during the Edo period, the Japanese began obsessing over Western culture, adopting many of their languages, and began studying from their books, which they translated into Japanese, which is impressive since they barely knew any of the other languages. Kind of like how we obsess over Japan, called weeaboos, Japan was obsessing over us. Nothing really happened until 1868, at the end of the Edo period, when the emperor was given more power again in the Meiji Restoration, named after the emperor, Emperor Meiji, who was kind of a jerk, although some of his descendants would be much worse. We have reached the 8th period in Japanese history, the Meiji Period. With the ascension of Emperor Meiji in 1868, a new period was started called the Meiji Period. It lasted from 1868 to 1912. The main event and highlight of this period was a war, the Russo-Japanese War. Tensions between Japan and Russia culminated in this epic war. Who do you think would win? If you guessed the underdog Japan, you would be correct. That's right, Japan kicked Russia's rear end in the Russo-Japanese War from 1904 to 1905. As a result, Russia had to give them the large island of Sakhalin, which kind of looks like it would be Japan's geographically, but anyways, due to instability on the island and the large Russian population, they would kind of just have to de facto give it back to Russia. It's part of Russia today also. With the death of Emperor Meiji in 1912 came the end of the Meiji period. Emperor Meiji's son, Taisho, became Emperor Taisho, beginning the Taisho period. During his short reign and period, from 1912 to 1926, Japan got pretty modernized, but there were also a lot of revolts against the government. And in the next period, and next emperor's reign, the most famous emperor in Japanese history, some pretty bad things would happen. Let's discuss that. After the death of Emperor Taisho, Japan's most famous emperor took power. The son of Emperor Taisho, Emperor Hirohito. Hirohito was a man of complex nature. He was a bit of an odd man at times, and he made many decisions, including many poor ones, that would change Japan forever. In 1939, World War II erupted after Hitler invaded Austria. Japan and Hirohito thought of it as a foreign conflict and tried to stay neutral, but that didn't always stay true. Hirohito came under the impression that the heavy U.S. presence in Asia was a bit overwhelming, which is one of the reasons he began to dislike the U.S. On September 27th, 1940, Hirohito was like, "I don't like the U.S. I wonder who else doesn't. I know, how about some very powerful and wealthy European powers? How about I team up with old mustache man over here? They call him Hitler. And also, how about Mr. Clean? Oh wait, his name is Mussolini? Anyways, how about we form a tripartite pact and destroy the U.S.? And so it was. This was the day Japan entered World War II. I've already talked about this. I made a whole video on World War II, but here are a few highlights. On December 7th, 1941, Japan bombed Pearl Harbor. I've talked about this in two other videos, one of which was my video on World War II, and the other was exclusively on Pearl Harbor. You can find those on my channel. And the other highlight of World War II for Japan was the U.S. dropping the bombs, of course. So Japan obviously got bombed by the U.S. in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Here's a fact not many people know about this. The U.S. was going to bomb Tokyo, but it was very graciously and thankfully taken off the list, as it is, well, the largest city in the world. Anyways, after Japan signed a treaty with the U.S. and slowly became great friends of the U.S., as the U.S. and the younger generation of Japan just wanted to move on from things long in the past. From January 7th, 1989 to April 30th, 2019, the Emperor of Japan was Emperor Akihito, who reigned for a pretty long time, only beaten by his father, Hirohito, who lived until the 80s and was pretty awkward when he visited the U.S. After Akihito abdicated because of his worsening health, he was succeeded by his son, Naruhito, who, fun fact, is actually fluent in English at a native level. Anyways, on September 16th, 2020, the bad year, Yoshihide Suga succeeded, I think his name was Shinzo Abe, I can't remember, as Prime Minister of Japan. Oh shoot, I just realized I went over 20 minutes. Anyways, and with that, that was my history of Japan. Thank you all so much for listening to the history section of this video. Now for part 2, the national anthem. I now present the oldest and shortest national anthem in the world, being made in the Heian period, roughly 1,000 years ago. Kimi Gayo. I'll try to squeeze it in. Enjoy the national anthem of Japan. If this video reaches 25 minutes, I'll break it into 2 videos. But if not, enjoy the anthem of Japan, Kimi Gayo. And here is how the lyrics will work. On the left will be the English lyrics, and on the right, after the dash, will be the Japanese lyrics. So if you want the English, look on the left side of the dash, and if you want Japanese, look on the right side. Thank you, and enjoy the Japanese national anthem, Kimi Gayo. And with that, that was my history and my cover of the national anthem of Japan for February 11th, Japan's National Day. Thank you all so much for watching. I really enjoyed and also didn't enjoy making this video. I enjoyed it because I like Japanese culture and history. Although I'm not a weeaboo, weeaboos can go and die in a hole. And I also didn't enjoy making this video because I spent the better part of 8 hours working on this video, whether it be editing, writing the script, which is 15 paragraphs long, and staying up until midnight. Yes, I stayed up until midnight on a day working on this, and that wasn't so fun, but if you like the video, you can like the video if you would like, and you can subscribe if you want. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching. I hope this video gets at least 20 views, which would be nice because I think that my channel is kind of dying right now, which is really demotivating, but I'll still keep on making videos. Speaking of making videos, what is coming up next? Why, thank you for not asking. Coming up next is my history of Valentine's Day. So that will be coming out in 3 days on Valentine's Day, which is February 14th. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching, and enjoy your day or night. I'm Andrew, and thank you for watching. Happy Japanese National Day.